The real Islamic political order. If, therefore, the Muslims adopt for their state or states the one-man method of government popularly known today as American system, they will but realize a principle indirectly recommended by the Prophet 13 centuries ago, Muhammad Assad. Proposed Islamic political model. In this video, we would be proposing an Islamic political model based entirely upon the 11 cardinals and 3 fundamentals of an Islamic state. No party-based democracy. The proposed model is an embodiment of real Islamic democracy, but no party-based democracy. The model hinges upon the centrality of power vested in the president, who is also the represented vicegerent of God. But he is also duly accountable for his affairs through people, its impartial judiciary, and the 2 houses, Supreme Council and Representative Council. Members of these councils are scrutinized through a statewide exclusive examination, incorporating due proportion of deen and worldly contemporary knowledge. In Representative Council, the examination qualified individuals are put through state electoral process from their represented districts on designated number of seats. Resultantly, the most qualified and elected individuals will form part of the Representative Council. In Supreme Council, the top designated number of contenders, duly qualified in statewide separate examination, will become its members. There will be separate council for people belonging to other faiths. It will be called the House of Minority Affairs, and it will represent, as per designated strength, people of all other faiths. Their represented members would be elected through exclusive electoral process for minorities. The next is Hizbah, which is mandated to enjoin good and forbid evil as a state-represented organization. The organization will have proportionate resources, that is, intelligence agencies, Islamic forces, ideological cell, accountability bureau, local bodies, arbitrary councils, principal supervisory board, and Islamic academia incubators. To undertake this voluminous task, it will be one of the most potent executionary body of the state. Then comes the Spectrum Management Authority, which will act as a brain of the state, also termed as Islamic Think Tank Institute. It will comprise of most competent scholars of deen and highly qualified field specialists. Besides mandated to provide policy goals of state, they will also act as a problem-solving institute of state by superimposing the essence of deen over prevailing issues. The provinces will be governed through governors who will be appointed by the president. They will be assisted by the field specialist cabinet, ministries, and police to undertake their task. Lastly, and more importantly, the judiciary is structured on tiered court levels, duly supported by the exclusive courts with dedicated jurisdiction on exclusive matters. Judges will be assessed through the analysis of their judgments by Council of Supreme Jury, composed of retired justices and civil observatories at federal and provincial levels. Justices of Supreme and High Courts will be selected through advanced and basic level qualification examinations. President. He would be embodiment of centralized power with absolutely fair degree of accountability. He should be a Muslim and elected out of Representative Council members. The top 5 contenders out of the Representative Council members will be nominated for presidency. These contenders will be allowed to put forth their manifesto and vision through I/O tools and state-sponsored gatherings for all contenders. He would be finally elected through voting from local bodies' representatives. Quantification for top 5 contenders will be as under. Cumulative percent of qualifying exam, valued at 50%. Total percent of votes cast in favor, relative to population density, will also be valued at 50%. Similarly, his impeachment would only be possible via seeking initially the public referendum for furthering impeachment proceedings. Impeachment proceedings could subsequently be only initiated once public referendum favors for it. Once successful, impeachment will place a bar of 5 years for further participation in politics. However, impeachment proceedings could only be initiated twice during the entire tenure of presidency. He will be legislative as well as executive, as he will be a president of Legislative Assembly, Representative Council, actively taking part in the legislation, but will also possess executive function as head of state. He alone would be responsible to the Representative Council and through it to the people for the policies of government. President would be bounded by the temporal legislation by both houses and their decisions on major questions of policy. However, translation of those decisions and directives, in terms of day-to-day execution, will be at the discretion of executive. President shall not enact any direct, derivative, and implied law personally, which is not passed by Representative Council and ratified by Supreme Council simple majority. But he could enact special and general laws through ordinances and orders respectively. Presidential directives for appointments and dismissal of individuals couldn't be challenged or obstructed by both the houses or judiciary. President is guided by Spectrum Management Authority for short, medium, and long-term state security policies and strategy. He can select any job-specific Muslim person for cabinet, less members of both the houses. He chairs the cabinet and combines in his person the twin functions of head of state and of prime minister. He appoints in consultation with chairs of both houses the supreme jury of retired justices and civil observatories for assessing the performance of judiciary and seeking advice for dismissal. President can refer any matter to Supreme and High Court for compulsory judicial hearing. He would be having limited and accountable gratis financial powers. Governors. They will represent President at provincial level. Governors will be selected by President as deemed appropriate, but not from both of the houses. Impeachment of governor can be carried out through a resolution by simple majority of local bodies' representatives seeking public referendum for impeachment. Governor could select and dismiss any job-specific Muslim cabinet member. And heads of provincial establishments and orgs, which is not challengeable in any court of law. He could enact general laws through orders, in consultation with President and provincial cabinet. Governors would be having limited and accountable gratis financial powers. Representative Council, Lower House. Members of Representative Council will be elected for a duration of 5 years, having minimum age of 40 years. They will initially qualify centralized Representative Council examination system. Then qualified individuals will contest general elections from respective district seats. These qualified individuals could outreach general public for their manifesto and vision through mosques, I/O tools, and general gatherings. They will contest for nomination of president amongst its most eligible members. Their primary mandate would be law extraction from deen and lawmaking as per injunctions of Islam and laws of nature. Representative Council cannot pass any law but only recommends draft law with defined majority to Supreme Council for final ratification or otherwise. They will institute council's special committees to deal with particular problems of the government and would be fully integrated with the executive and law drafting activities of the government. Council special committees would perform the function of an advisory council of the minister. They would be having no financial gratis powers, but can only approve financial bill. Its members cannot be dismissed and impeached by the President. Supreme Council, Upper House. Members of Supreme Council will qualify and contest through centralized Supreme Council examination system. They will ratify laws recommended by Representative Council with simple majority, and can also ratify law advice of the President rejected by Representative Council with 2/3 majority. They are also mandated to arbitrate in all instances of disagreement between the President and Representative Council, referred by either of the two sides. They will also interpret, if involved, for inquiry of Islamic judicial law for a particular case by superior courts. They will advise President on employment of armed forces and paramilitary forces. Members of Supreme Council will be debarred from holding after retirement or resignation any post in the state, whether elective or appointive, paid or honorary. Members cannot be dismissed and impeached by the President. They don't possess any financial gratis powers but only approve financial bills. Spectrum Management Authority. It will be a Islamic think tank institute and consist of members appointed by the President. It will maintain balanced composition of prominent scholars of Deen and 3 most qualified field specialists, including educationist, economy, medical sciences, international relations, defense and strategy, commerce and trade, agriculture and food, human resource, technology, media, engineering, petroleum and minerals, scientists, lawyer, human rights, environmentalist, hydrologist, transport analysts, revenue, land management and record, awqaf, zakat and taxation, tourism and archaeology, sports, minorities, women, etc. The duration of SMA members will be performance-based as observed by President, but not exceeding 5 years. They will be mandated to give short, medium, and long-term policies, define state objectives in accordance with Allah's defined norms, principles, values, and system of civilization. They will render performance assessment advices of governors, chiefs of armed forces, and heads of intelligence agencies in relation to state objectives and policies to the President. They could propose to President to extend honorary membership to field specialist foreigners, including non-Muslims. It advises President on employment of armed forces for policy goals, responsible to prepare modules and papers for CRCES and CSCES with following mandate. CRCES, 40% Deen, Quran, Sirat, Sahih Ahadith, best practices of righteous caliphs. 60% other fields which form part of Spectrum Management Authority, CSCES, 60% Deen, Quran, Sirat, Sahih Ahadith, best practices of righteous caliphs and companions of Holy Prophet, and fundamental jurisprudence. 40% other fields which form part of Spectrum Management Authority. Local bodies. They will not belong to any political party and elected through elections for a duration of 3 years. Their minimum qualification will be graduation. They would elect president from the top 5 nominations of Representative Council. They can initiate impeachment against governors through referendum of local bodies' representatives, and their simple majority will initiate the public referendum for future status of governor. Local bodies will be administered or monitored through Principal's supervisory body of Hizbah for performance assessment. Islamic Academia Incubators, IAI. They will be given a mandate to preach, discuss, spread, manifest Deen-e-Islam with special emphasis on enjoining good and forbidding evil. Thus, synergizing the efforts of preachers will be its primary objective. It will also act as a fundamental pillar of community service and social welfare. Mosques and universities would be acting as institutions for IAI. Its members could be any individual of a community who urged to serve humanity and spread the message of Allah. Its members would be enabled through IAI for given mandate. It will have a community and institutional-based core staff, which will also manage the awqaf of a particular community under the patronage of original owner of Waqf. Its core structure and ventures would be funded through awqaf, however, the deficiency would be supported through government.